Congressman Mike Waltz is with us now for his update that he does each week here on WNDB. He's joining us live this morning on WNDB. And Congressman, among some of the topics we're looking for, the PPP highlight program. What's the latest on this?
Yeah, sure. We're highlighting success stories, local success stories from the Paycheck Protection Program. Please come to my website at waltz.house.gov to let us know what's been successful. One of the ones that was just highlighted for us was Pat's Riverfront Cafe in Port Orange, which left a note on our site that said if it had not been for PPP, there would have been no way that I could have reopened after we were allowed to, and it's allowed him to keep almost all of his people on their payroll, which, I know there's been some stumbles, but at the end of the day, we've estimated over 80,000 jobs have been saved by the program just in my congressional district.
Congressman, pivoting to the post office, I guess there's going to be a vote tomorrow. It's been somewhat confusing because the Postmaster General kind of backed away from the threat of no overtime, not delivering all of the mail, and removing post office boxes. Can you tell us what caused him to change his mind?
Well, I think this has been kind of, frankly, a crisis that's been invented out of for political reasons by Pelosi and by the left. Many of these initiatives, those boxes that are being moved, are being done to make the post office more efficient. If you have a box out there with two letters in it, they're trying to make efficiency in the routes. They're trying to make efficiency in the processing. The process was started actually with the Obama era Postmaster General as in a response to government accountability reports. So these things have been underway. However, this Postmaster General, DeJoy, said, you know what, we don't want anyone to be able to say that the election was interfered with. So he's paused those efficiency initiatives to make the post office more competitive and to quit losing money year over year. He's paused those until after November. And I think that's where the confusion's coming in.
Okay. The situation with Steve Bannon yesterday came as a shock to a lot of us, and any person is innocent until proven guilty. But what was your reaction to the Bannon story yesterday? Well,
I was surprised as well. But again, I find the timing also incredibly interesting, just days before the RNC convention kicks off. This apparently has been underway for some time, at least a year, the investigation. And to have all of the arrests and arraignments happen right now, I find interesting, but here nor there. Let's let the court system play out. Mr. Bannon has pled not guilty. He deserves his day in court. But I think at the end of the day, we do need to look at the fact that the president has built, his administration has built over 300 miles of wall. Illegal immigration is down at record lows. There's a push and a pull to immigration policy on the southern border. There's the kind of push from the poorer countries, but then there's the pull in that they knew all they had to do was step foot in the United States and be granted asylum. And I think we've pretty effectively managed to stop that. And I think it's important not to lose sight of that. And Mark, if I can just add on the post office piece, the Democrats are going to push tomorrow to push $25 billion of additional spending into the post office. And I want to assure everyone we're being briefed that right now they're sitting on $14 billion in cash. The CARES Act put another $10 billion in a line of credit in place, which the post office hasn't had to touch. So I'm gonna end up voting against this. I just don't think it's necessary, and they're trying to conflate long-standing issues with the post office with this allegation the president's trying to interfere with the election, and that's just ridiculous.
Okay. On an unrelated note, I talked with Carter Page yesterday. He has a new book coming out in the next few days. And as we went through what the Justice Department did to him, I'm hoping that something good comes out of this terrible story. The guy persecuted for virtually nothing. That I'm hoping that somehow he can go to court and civilly sue to get some of his life back, because he's a victim. And if it happens to him, it could happen to anybody.
That's right. as is Mike Flynn. If it can happen to an incoming national security advisor for the president of the United States, it can happen to anyone. Look, Mark, that transition, I was in for the transition from Bush to Obama. That transition, one party handing power to the other and doing so for the goodness of the United States and not inserting politics or abusing that power, is critical to the future of this country. And getting to the bottom of what happened in that transition is critical. The fact that an opposing presidential campaign was being surveilled should scare all of us. By an opposing political party for political reasons should scare all of us. And I want to see accountability at the top levels of the FBI. There are many wonderful, great agents out there that I've worked with. I'm talking about the very few at the top, Comey, McCabe, and others that I think have grossly abused their power, and we need to get to the bottom of it.
Okay, I want to ask, since the president met with high-ranking officials from Iraq yesterday, and they were tight-lipped about when America should pull its forces out. You served over there. How close are we, do you think, to being able to pull out?
Well, I think it depends on how you define the troops. And the prime minister yesterday was clear he doesn't need necessarily American combat troops out doing combat operations, but he does still need trainers and advisors as they continue to build the Iraqi army, and you still have remnants of ISIS. You have sleeper cells that are still conducting attacks, and then you have Iranian-backed militias. So we can't do what Obama did, which is just yank everyone out and then allow ISIS 3.0 and find ourselves right back where we were in 2014. So, look, the president has been clear. He wants to minimize our footprint in the Middle East and shift it to face what is the real threat in China. I agree with that, but I think we have to do it very carefully. And interestingly, one thing you did not hear from Joe Biden last night in the DNC, or for the entire week, for that matter, was China. And I find that incredibly disturbing, particularly as his son right now is a business partner with the Central Bank of China, obviously run by the Chinese Communist Party.
Exactly. One last question. Back to Iraq. Do you think that they will sign on to the president's peace plan and follow the UAE?
I don't see the Iraq. That's much more difficult domestically for the Iraqis to do, but I could see some more of the smaller Gulf states, Oman, Bahrain, doing so. I mean, and they would only do so with the quiet acquiescence of the Saudis. So this is now a fundamental and strategic shift where you're seeing the Gulf Arab states align with Israel because they're much, much more concerned about Iran and the Ayatollahs than they are about our greatest ally in the Middle East, and that's Israel. So that's a huge shift, and the president, Jared Kushner, his team, Pompeo deserve a lot of credit for it.
Congressman Mike Waltz joining us live today on WNDB. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being with us this morning, and we'll talk to you next week.